Hello, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that great music. So my name is David Cerna. I am our instructional consultant and technologist here on the C.A.L team. I am very pleased to introduce Professor Ludwig Nitsche during our Microsoft OneNote 101 Tips and Tricks webinar today. He is the Associate Dean and Professor of Mechanical Engineering. So we are very pleased to be working with him today. So let's go over some of our session goals and what we'll cover in our webinar today. Number one, we'll talk about using Microsoft OneNote more effectively in your courses. This will begin a series of really diving deeper into our Microsoft 365 applications that we offer here on the UDC campus. So today we'll start by talking about Microsoft OneNote. I will begin our session by talking about setting up. So with Blackboard Ultra, I'll show how to integrate OneNote in your Blackboard Ultra course. I'll do a quick walkthrough. And Professor Ludwig Nitsche will go over real use cases that he does currently for his students and also with his lectures. He'll talk about how to give directives to your students and how to ensure that they're using OneNote correctly and effectively in your course. Last but not least, I'll go over some next steps and we'll have some time for Q&A. If you do have any questions at any time during our webinar today, feel free to go ahead and put those in the chat box. You can also just unmute yourself. That's completely fine. So let's begin. So I'd like to start our webinar by talking about, do you use Microsoft OneNote currently in your courses? Please let us know. You can type that in the chat box or just unmute. Right? Are you using it? And if so, how are you using it? See a no in the chat box. If you don't use it currently, then you are in the right place, right? That is perfect. Thank you, Professor Sneed, as well. But as you can see in this example graphic, this professor is using it for his physical science course. So his students are able to annotate, put images, etc. right there. Hello, Isabel. ECE classes, no, I have never used. There you go, right? So everyone is in the perfect place for today. So here's a quick video that will introduce what is Microsoft OneNote before we start diving in to some use cases. Let's watch.
OneNote is your very own digital notebook. Whether you have a million ideas, a million things to do, or a million things to remember, OneNote is the perfect app for capturing pretty much everything. Type notes or record audio at your desktop. Sketch or write ideas on a tablet. Or add a picture from your phone. And because all your notes are in the cloud, OneNote lets you switch devices and pick up where you left off. And once you've captured everything with OneNote, you can organize it however you want. Freely move notes around the page, organize those pages into sections, and keep your sections in one or more notebooks. OneNote can capture it all and help you find it instantly later. OneNote is as structured or as unstructured as you want it to be. You can even share your notebooks with others, so you can all view and contribute at the same time, turning a few isolated notes into a resounding symphony. Learn how to use OneNote to capture, organize, and share everything that matters to you.
So OneNote really is a digital notebook for capturing and organizing everything across your devices. Since we use Microsoft 365, this is all connected to the cloud. So anything that you do will be synced that you can open up in your class on different devices, on your smart device, etc. You can jot down your ideas, you can organize classroom notes, clip from the web, or sketch your ideas. Professor Ludwig Nitsche will go over how he uses it in his class today, really to structure his classroom. Okay. So let me go ahead and go over the Blackboard Ultra integration before moving on. So I'm going to share my screen. And as everyone can see here, this is my Ultra sandbox. So let's use it as a pretend course for today. There are two ways you can integrate Microsoft OneNote into your Blackboard Ultra course. The first one on the left side, you can follow my cursor, go to Books and Tools, View Course and Institution Tools. If I click on that, on the right side, if I scroll down just a bit, you'll see Microsoft OneNote right here. So very On the right side, you want to click on this plus sign. That will add it to your Blackboard course. So let me click on the plus sign. So as you can see right here, under course content, I have this OneNote open up right here. I will go ahead and make it visible to students. So that's the first way you can add OneNote to your course content. Let's go over a second way. So anytime you add something new to your course content in Blackboard Ultra, click on the plus sign right here. I can go to Content Market. This will open up a bigger page for me. I'll go ahead and scroll down. Same thing, you look for Microsoft OneNote right here, click on the plus sign. And then you have OneNote right there. I'll make it visible to students. You can also rename this if you would like. So I'll go ahead and go to the edits with the 3 dots. And let me call it Science OneNote. I can put click here. Parentheses, make it visible to students. I can also add a description right here. This is the link for accessing OneNote for our class. So something like that. I can click on save. And as you can see, if a student clicks on this, or if you click on it, that will take you directly to that Microsoft OneNote page. So I'll go ahead and sign in, use your UDC credentials, and so on. That will have OneNote ready for you right here. I see in the chat box, Ahmad, right? Yes. This will be uploaded to YouTube, this recording of the webinar after this is over, so you can also follow along again. And with that, I do want to hand it over to Professor Nitsche, who will go over some use cases, setting this up, and directives. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute or type in the chat box. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cerna. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, good. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Does it show up?
Yes, I can see it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah.
We can see it.
Okay, so the first thing I want to answer the question, why use OneNote? And the answer to that is sort of the title of this fostering student engagement in the courses. They'll talk about some of the benefits, setting it up for use in the lecture by students, how to give directives for students, and walk through for some use cases. So the first thing is why use OneNote engagement. I just wanted to quickly go over how I had been using OneNote before, because it really is a useful tool. So especially when we started their emergency remote instructions with the beginning of the pandemic, for lecturing, I just opened a page. So you see here, I have basically a section of my notebook, and then I have a page for each lecture. In civil engineering, they had remote classes for the first week and a half of the semester. So I did 3 lectures that way. And then, of course, we were back in person. So I have a page, I call the classes lessons 2 and 3, and so on. And it's really useful because you can type in it. That's just typed. You can paste in any screen captures or sections of an Excel notebook. Here's a data table for constants for heat capacity correlation. And then you can just write with a pen. So I can just keep making annotations in several colors and so on. So I use this as like a whiteboard or a chalk talk. And at the end, you can export it to PDF. So then the students have a record of what was discussed in class exactly the way it appeared on the board. So that's just during lecture, how I used OneNote before. And one thing I noticed during the pandemic was that, well, first of all, I was amazed at how much instructional contact there was. Coming back to in-person instruction, I'm also realizing, especially if it's a hands-on course where we do things pretty much every class period on a computer, how much you still gain from the on-site interaction. But failing that, and the best we could do is I wanted to make sure that students were actively engaged and following through on the material that we covered in class. I think it's also a way of giving, sort of enforcing accountability of the students for what they're doing for the class. And you can also show them individualized attention. And then finally, it's also a vehicle to promote an overall strategy of good record keeping practices. Because a lot of times, if I ask students like, what were you working on? And it takes them a long time to find their homework or what they did on it. And so I usually spend some time at the beginning of the course in the first lecture just saying, hey, look, this is how I'm recommending that you keep records for this class. On your computer, have a folder for this class, have a folder for each lecture and for each homework and so on. And it seems kind of obvious to me until you realize that a lot of students don't do that. And so it's worth going over. In terms of setting up the OneNote for students, I would say the single most important word is structure. Lay out a structure, because some of the organization record keeping that you and I may take for granted, it seems that students, they somehow haven't seen that yet. So each student notebook is private between the student and the instructor. You see them all, but they see only theirs. One thing I do is I prepare a structure of sections to say, okay, I have one section for the lessons, one section for homework, one section for feedback and questions. And so you just lay it out for them so that then it's ready to use. Another thing I've learned by experience is I need to be very, very clear on expectations. Otherwise, what students upload is pretty much all over the map. And I make sure to try to integrate it with the course material, so it's regular enough that it becomes a drill and ultimately cultivates a good habit on the part of the students while they're working on your course and study. In terms of giving directives to the students, I tell them very explicitly, where to say the material and under what title. I make sure to link the OneNote items to specific examples or activities that we covered in class so they can return to them and review. I make OneNote worth the student's while. So let me just pull up my syllabus here for the Applied Numerical Methods course I'm teaching this semester. I do give them a whopping 25% of the final grade for keeping up with the portfolio throughout the whole semester. And I tell them, those are free points. I mean, I would expect you anyway to be reviewing what we cover in class. And so I just make it worth the while. And the thing is, because everybody knows that they're going to get 25% of the points, it just raises that bar. Nobody wants to be left behind. So then basically it's just as competitive for the remaining 75% of the points, because those 25% are a given in any case. And then one thing which I've done, I've encouraged, but I haven't yet really had a return on it, is I always create a section for feedback and questions if they have them. And unfortunately, I haven't gotten that section filled out by any students, and that's like 3 semesters going. And then the last thing is, because things may not be that organized during the semester, what I do is I have a period of amnesty at the end of the semester, and the last assignment is an inventory, which is basically a table of contents. And so then the students go through what they did, and they can clean up and reorganize if necessary. And especially going into the final exam, I think that's a good opportunity for the students to review the material that they were doing all semester. And so with that as sort of a description, I'm now going to walk through what I'm doing this semester and sort of describe the evolution from all the way back in fall 2020 through, this is now 3 semesters later, how I set things up. And by the way, from starting in fall, that was when Blackboard was still the classic or the traditional version. And now, of course, things are in the Ultra version.
And Professor, I have a couple questions, if you don't mind, if we can have a stopping point.
Yeah.
So I see one from Dr. Brown. Are you able to write directly on the OneNote?
Oh yeah, I will, so far I've been talking to the students. We'll find out very soon because I'll try to do it right now when I pull
Okay,
up.
perfect. That was a great segue into the next section, right?
Okay, so let me go. Let's see. Yes. So this is the way the course is set up in Blackboard. There's the usual course information, which has a syllabus. Then under resources, so that's a learning module. And I've moved the OneNote into there. So, for all the resources, just click on that. I can do it. The students can do it. I'll open it online. Okay, what you see here is, so on the left vertical menu, you have a notebook for each student. I'll open this one. And you notice I have one section is for the lessons. These are the class sessions. And so this student has been very conscientious, filling in one for every lesson. Let me go back to the Blackboard. So this is a lesson by lesson guide. I put them in reverse chronological order. So as soon as you open the learning module, you get to the most recent one. This is how it started out. That was the emergency remote instruction class. So I always have a title, what this lesson is on. There's the reading in the textbook, any additional reading, which is a download. Then I say what the students should do by way of preparation before class. And one of the things I say is download all the files, open up a folder on your computer, call it lesson 1, and put everything in there. And then I also say log into your OneNote course portfolio within the resources section, set up a page called lesson 1 in the lessons section. Then in this first section, lesson of the course, we did a calculation in Excel. And so then I give them a starter, which is an arena in which they work from. And then we did several examples in MATLAB. And then at the end, the last section of the Blackboard is what they're supposed to do in the OneNote portfolio. So I say, okay, open a new page named lesson 1 in your portfolio. And then for example 1, whatever they did in Excel, paste in screenshots. Then with the MATLAB M files, paste in the screenshots. So they know exactly what to do. And sometimes this involves review, where they have to, I maybe have started an example and then I say finish it and then paste it in OneNote. In some cases, it's just documenting how they were following along in class. So that's examples 1 and 2. If they were paying attention in class and doing the work, they have it right on their computer. Some of them even just do it right there, stay a few minutes extra before they leave the classroom and just do it. And of course, with an in-person class, and I can buzz around the room and look over the shoulder and make sure that they're following along with what we're doing. So that's one example of the first lecture. Then this fast forward to the 8th class. Again, preparation before class. I gave them a starter for the Excel. I gave them one function in MATLAB, and then here's some clear instructions of what they're supposed to do in the OneNote. So let's now log in. Let's see, I cannot make this banner disappear. Okay, so let me access the OneNote again through Blackboard. I usually use the online version. So here we see in the first lesson, they had 3 coefficients in a quadratic polynomial. The student, filled in the table, created the graph in Excel. And then we did the same calculation in MATLAB. And here you see a screenshot of their function and their script. And there are the graphs that it produced and so on. And then the lesson 8, which I just mentioned, this was using the nonlinear equation solver in Excel. So basically they have a linkage called the Watts linkage that you could use, for example, to locate an axle on a car. And then part of it was, so they pasted in a screenshot of how they set up the solver within Excel. And then you can check cell by cell that it's being done correctly. And then this here is a particular configuration of the linkage. This here is the link point, which you can't see because it's almost straight. And then they can actually move the linkage around by putting in different parameters and see how what the configuration is and so on. So now to answer the question, let me just scroll to the bottom. So I'm going to go to draw. Yeah, so you can just write and annotate however you need to in the OneNote. Yep. Okay. So basically then the students are, keeping up lecture by lecture, and I prorated how much credit they get for, each of the assignments. You can see here, this is a function in MATLAB, and here they've pasted in the output on the command window in MATLAB. So they're doing this during the semester. And then the last thing, let me go to last fall semester. So now what this amounts to, so it looks like there were only 2 homeworks during the semester. These were fairly lengthy, but the point is this is like a homework assignment that they're doing after every class. So it keeps them engaged. And then the last assignment was to create a inventory. So in preparation for the final exam, prepare a table of contents using the attached Excel template and then email it to me. One thing with all the assignments, I'm very clear to say exactly how you're supposed to name the file and what to use as the subject header. So now let's look at what the inventory looks like. Okay, so I have them type in their name, and then just a list item by item. So for example, the first item could be in the lessons section, first page. This was the date of the lecture. And then what they did. So they're compiling a table of contents, and in the process of doing that, they can review it. And with the amnesty, if you didn't finish it, then you can go back and actually complete that, review assignment or finishing what we did in class or what was assigned in class. So it gives a chance to review everything that we've covered during the semester. And then it makes my job easier when I go through the portfolio and see what's been updated to assign the points to it. This guides me through, so I'm not hunting around, and trying looking for things that may be, either misplaced or placed in odd places. So that's one of the homework assignments, which also counts for points, and then it forces the students to review. Yeah,
Thank you, Professor. And I do want to build in a stopping point here. I saw some great questions in the chat box. So I see one from Fiona. Did you go over the instructions in real time for your class?
When you mean, okay, yeah, let me just go back to this. Let me see, I had some of these. Are you referring to this part?
Yeah, I assume that she's referring to that. Yeah, so those instructions, how did you introduce these directives, and were your students able to understand them clearly?
Right, yeah. So basically, I mean, since I always open up Blackboard as one of the things on the screen. And then, I mean, as we go through the examples, I say, okay, download this file, then we're working through it, download these, MATLAB M files. And then the last thing I do before we finish is, yes, I say, this is written down, but I do indicate, verbally, this is what I expect for your OneNote from this example. This is what I expect. So it's both getting it on two channels. They have the written instructions, but I also review orally what I would want them to put in the notebook.
Excellent. And I saw another question earlier from Susie. How did you get to the 25%, 25% for OneNote participation? Like, how did you get to that figure?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I can't say it was, that exact science. I wanted to make it enough that students didn't just blow it off. So
were you using something else before using OneNote? And did this make it more effective and easier for you?
Yeah, I would say so it started with fall 2020 with the pandemic, where I realized so the last 5 weeks of emergency remote instruction in spring of 2020, I was teaching a freshman course, and it's a course that usually has a lot of students. There was not really a critical mass, and things started fading fast. So I realized that I have to do something different and hopefully better come the fall with all remote instruction. So just for perspective, let me open up the syllabus again. Let's see here. So you can see that the 25% is actually quite a lot. So the final exam is 30%, it's 2 hours. Each hour exam in the middle of the semester, being half the time is and half the credit. And so 25%, it's between one midterm and the final. So the point is, I always tell students, there are no trick questions here. It's all transparent. And I like to avoid a scenario where everything falls on one day, meaning if you had a really bad day on the final, you're really in bad shape for the course. Mm-hmm. So the 25%, I think it has enough of an incentive to do it, and it makes it really worthwhile. But by the way, since those 25% are so easy to earn, I mean, there's no question mark, meaning nothing can go wrong. Because if a student has trouble, then I'll walk them through it during the office hours. So it's very straightforward, which means everybody's going to do it. So what it does is, like in the same way that there are exams like the SAT where it goes, what is it, between 10 and 32. So where'd they start and where'd they stop? So effectively, with 25% of the core of the points so easy to earn, effectively the grade is decided between 25 and 100, the remaining 75%. So the thing is, it really forces them to do it and keep up with the class, which is what I want. So, and honestly, if a student is keeping up with the material day by day, I'm very happy to give them a significant number of points, because what more do I want than for them to conscientiously review the course material?
Excellent. And that was great. Thank you so much, Professor. And I see one more question. Are students able to see each other's notebooks? Do you have to change any privacy settings?
Right. Yeah. There is, I need to see, there is a section where you can have like a common part. Yeah, no, but the point is, in this, I really want it private because I want the student not to feel bashful about what they're doing. And if they, flub, that I think that's an important part of it.
Yep. And for everyone here, when you do set up on Blackboard Ultra, the integration with Microsoft OneNote, by default, all of the student notebooks are private. So that will just be seen between you and your student. Right? Thank you so much. Are there any other questions before we continue on from the group? Excellent. Well, thank you, Professor. You can continue. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is basically where I think I finished. because I've gone through how we do it in class. I do think the wrap up, inventory at the end is an important part of it, because it makes for better organized portfolios, and it also gets the students to review before the final exam.
Excellent. Do you want to go over, or can you go over the integration with the Ultra Gradebook and how you utilize OneNote for that?
Oh, yes, actually, so this is something where I can probably learn from you. I haven't done that.
Okay. So I think that would be a great conversation with our colleague Julian King when he returns. So he can go over the integration specifically with OneNote and Ultra Gradebook. But as you showed in your syllabus, it is that 25% for everyone here. So I think that was great. But yes, definitely we will follow up on that for our next session. Are there any other questions from the group? If not, I can go over briefly creating a new class notebook. So let me go over that for everyone here, and then feel free, Professor, to jump in at any time.
Right. So have I stopped sharing yet?
Yeah, I'll start sharing right now. So okay. I think everyone can see this on the screen. Perfect. So remember what I showed you earlier about connecting Blackboard and OneNote. Again, you can go ahead and go to Books and Tools, and then I can click on the plus sign right here next to OneNote. That will add that OneNote link. What I did here is I just added a little bit more detail. You don't have to do this, but I just put it there just for ease of use. And then there's a link right here. And let me go ahead. I see a question in the chat box. I'm not sure how I can integrate it into my class. Feel free to unmute if you'd like to talk. We can kind of brainstorm some ideas of how you can integrate this in your class if you would like. Or you can type in the chat box if you can't speak right now. But I'll continue on. As you can see here, I will create a new notebook for my class. So I'll just walk through this section right here. I'm just going to put test for webinar, and I'll go to next. So as you can see, this will create that test for webinar notebook right here. And then student notebooks are a private space for each student. The teacher can edit the content. The student can edit his or her own content and can't view others' notebooks. So by default, it's already set this way. So I know Dr. Brown asked that question about privacy settings. I'll go to next. And then giving another teacher permission to use this class notebook. Professor, is this something that you use in your class, giving another teacher some access for this?
The only scenario I would use that for is if I have, let's say, a TA who I want to grade those assignments, then I would do that.
Excellent. So for example, I can go ahead and put someone else's name. For example, Patrick Cottrell is on this call. I can add his name here as another teacher for this course, right? So let me go ahead and look for him. He should be here. Yes, there you go. So Patrick Cottrell, I can go to next. And now what are your students' names? So this will automatically add from the LMS, from Blackboard Ultra, the students that are in your class to this notebook. I'll just go ahead and put automatically add students from your LMS as they access this notebook. You can also design private spaces. These sections will be created in every student's private notebook. Here are a few suggestions. Professor, is there anything else that you add or kind of edit here in your circumstance? Yeah,
well, let's see. So basically, I suppose, what I called class, I think what they mean by class notes is maybe the notes that you're uploading. Those I actually post in the Blackboard. So I would, for me, I replace that with lessons. So those are the follow-up assignments that they're doing class by class. There is a section for homework if they have anything that they're working on toward a particular assignment. I leave that there. Then I had a reflection and feedback. But
and I can just go ahead and click on the plus sign, reflection and feedback.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then I had one other section, which is very specific to the course on mathematical typesetting. It's a kind of extra credit that they can do throughout the semester. So anything they do, they paste in there.
Excellent. So as you can see, as the Professor Nitsche was walking through that with me, I can easily just rename these, and I can also add another section here. But by default, you saw those example categories. I'll click on next. So I can go ahead and preview with this visual preview, which shows the teacher's notebook as well as the student's notebook right here. So with the student's notebook, let me just go ahead and circle. There are handouts, lessons, homework, quizzes, reflection and feedback, also that extra credit section right there. Once I create this, it takes a few minutes, and then you are done with creating that notebook for the course. Right? I see a question. Can I add the final exam in OneNote for each student? Professor?
A question. Now, in what sense does that mean the same final exam for all students or a different final for each student? Is it an individualized final or a common final? Yeah, so what I haven't, there's the teacher space, which I don't know if it can be shared with students. What you could do is you could have, the way Mr. Cerna had just created a section, I suppose you could create a section for a final exam, and then you could paste in the final exam for each student, but that would be manual. I don't know. That's maybe something to look into. If it's the same final for all students, if you could pre-populate that and just upload it in yours, and then it automatically goes to the students. I'm not sure about that. Is that what you were asking?
Yes, that's what I was asking. Thank you.
Thank you. And like what Professor Nitsche went over earlier, you can draw or write on this. We do have another professor, Professor Durai, who teaches math. I know he uses this in his courses, so he can write directly on here and it's automatically saved. So the way that you can do that is if I go right here, and let me just write on here. So I can go ahead and click on draw. So the draw tab is right here. If you do have a touchpad or touchscreen, or even if you're using this on an iPad, you can go ahead and draw that way. I'll go ahead and put hello there. So this is a great way if you are doing anything with equations or drawing things or just want to visually annotate your students' work, you can go ahead and use that draw function right here. Any other questions about this setup that I just went over? Or Professor, anything that you would like to add to what I went over here?
No, I don't think so.
Excellent. So I do promise everyone here, I will look into that gradebook integration with our gradebook whiz, Mr. Julian King, as he gets back, and I will update everyone here. This will be added to our YouTube channel as well. But before we move on, I do want to go over next steps. So for next steps here, let me go ahead and put in the chat box some of our links that are very helpful, and give me a second. Okay, so first one that I want to go over in that chat box. Number one, you have Dr. Ludwig Nitsche's email right there. You also have my email. Please feel free to email either of us if you have any additional questions. We would like to follow up about OneNote as well and look at some more case studies. If you would like, if you could fill out that C.A.L survey feedback, it's bit.ly/C.A.L survey. Please let us know what we did well or what you would like to see in the future. That really helps to shape our future PD. We also have office hours right here. If you click on that link, you're able to sign up for office hours. You can sign up for office hours with my colleague Julian or my colleague Pat. We do offer those Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Our next PD session is this Thursday on the 24th. If you are familiar with Hypothesis, Hypothesis is that live annotation of text documents, PDFs. It is a great tool to use to increase student engagement. We have a new function now in Blackboard Ultra using Hypothesis in small groups. That will be this Thursday from 12 to 1. You can find that registration link right in the chat box. Also, recorded webinars. We have over 23 recorded webinars currently. You can click on that link. It's on our YouTube channel, and you can view this webinar as well as some of our other ones there. I know we are ending a little bit early. I do want to leave some time for Q&A if there are any other questions. Yes, I see a question. I'm struggling with breakout groups and I would like some help with that. who can help me? I can help you with that. So you can go ahead and just sign up for office hours or just email me. I'll put my email again. It's david.cerna@udc.edu. I would be more than happy to help you with that, with breakout groups. Any other questions, Professor?
Actually, Mr. Cerna, yeah, if maybe between you and Julian King, you could look into, is there an efficient way to post material within students' notebooks, but in bulk? That was one of the questions with the exam.
I will definitely follow up. So post content in bulk.
Yeah, so that every student gets the same thing, but in a certain section in their notebook.
Got it. So I have listed that to follow up. Any other questions I can answer? Well, Professor, before we conclude our session today, are there any final thoughts about tips for those professors that may be hesitant to start integrating OneNote? How did you start integrating OneNote, or any resources that particularly helped you in getting started?
I would say that this, the saying that when the pupil is ready, the teacher appears.
Mm-hmm.
I started at UDC in fall of 2019, and I was teaching a fluid mechanics course, and this was still teaching in person, and I was trying to get the students engaged, and so I had the idea of a portfolio, but it was kind of half-baked, and there wasn't really a platform with it I could check on what the students were doing. So it's kind of a poor second best. I tried to make office hours mandatory, and then I want to talk to every student in the class at least once a week, if only for 15 minutes. But the problem was, it's like, how do you collect the material? Sometimes it was on paper, sometimes it was computer files. And so because you can literally paste anything into OneNote, it turned out to be the perfect platform. So that was really an idea where I realized that level of engagement was desirable and even necessary, but there wasn't a platform until I realized, oh yeah, I can use OneNote for that.
Excellent. And I did see another question earlier. How do you find your students accessing OneNote? Do they access OneNote usually through their computer, through an iPad, through their phone, or do all three work in these circumstances?
Okay, yeah. Honestly, I think a phone wouldn't really be feasible because what we're doing on it is typing in a spreadsheet or very detailed coding, so it would just be way too small. A tablet might work. For what we're doing, I think it wouldn't make sense unless you're using a computer which has all the software and you have a big enough screen to really be able to read it clearly.
Excellent. So with that, if there are no other questions, Professor Nitsche, it was great to collaborate with you on this workshop. We'd love to hear from you again in the future. For everyone here, we are looking to start a Microsoft 365 series. So our next session will be in April. It will be particularly over OneDrive and also differences between OneDrive, SharePoint, collaborating in Teams. I know those terms get thrown around a lot, but there are some differences between them. So we will go over that in more detail. You can also check out our upcoming PD on our PD website, which I put earlier. I'll put all the links one more time for everyone here. And again, we have another workshop this Thursday, all about hypothesis and small groups. We'd love to see you there. So thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy day to spend with us. It has been a pleasure. Thank you again, Professor Nitsche. So if you do have any questions, you can feel free to email me or Professor Nitsche if you have questions about Microsoft OneNote. And we hope to see you again for another PD. So have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cerna.
Thank you. Bye-bye.